The colored Christmas lights reflected off patches of fresh snow as Michael Parker's Range Rover crawled through the deserted commercial district of Westlake, 22 degrees and falling, according to the dashboard display. Most businesses had closed early for Christmas Eve, leaving the streets empty except for the occasional last-minute shopper hurrying through the cold. Michael adjusted the heat, his thoughts already at home with Ethan. His 6-year-old son would be bouncing off the walls with excitement, probably driving Mrs. Baker to distraction with questions about Santa's exact arrival time. Michael's phone buzzed with a text from his executive assistant confirming tomorrow's Christmas dinner had been catered as requested. One less thing to worry about. The penthouse would be filled with food, if not with people. 4 years as a single dad had taught him to create traditions from scratch, to manufacture magic from thin air. The Bradford development deal he'd closed yesterday, his company's first 8-figure contract, should have felt more triumphant. Instead, the signed paperwork sat in his briefcase like any other document, the milestone oddly hollow. Movement near the dumpsters behind Westlake Market caught his eye. Probably just plastic bags caught in the wind. But something made Michael slow the vehicle, his construction manager's instincts kicking in. In his 15 years overseeing building sites, he'd developed a sixth sense for when something wasn't right. He pulled over, leaving the headlights on, illuminating the scene in harsh white light. Two small shapes huddled together behind the dumpster, partially hidden under what looked like torn blankets. Not trash bags. Children. Michael stepped out, the bitter cold immediately stinging his face. He approached slowly, careful not to frighten them. Two little girls, long curly brown hair, matted with dirt, faces pale from cold and fear. They couldn't be more than 7 or 8 years old. "Hey there," Michael kept his voice gentle, kneeling a few feet away. "Are you okay? Where are your parents?" One girl lifted her head, her eyes wide with a terror that made Michael's chest tighten. Beneath the fear, something worse flickered. Resignation. As if she'd been expecting this moment and already knew how it would end. "Please don't take us back. We'll be good." The other girl's voice broke as she shifted to place herself between Michael and her sister. "We promise we'll be good." The protective gesture from one small, freezing child struck Michael like a physical blow. These weren't runaways on an adventure. These were terrified children expecting punishment for the crime of existing. "I'm not going to take you anywhere you don't want to go. I just want to make sure you're okay. Can you tell me what's going on?" The protective one hesitated, studying his face like she was trying to assess a threat level. "I'm Sophia. This is Olivia. We're twins." Michael noticed small tarnished lockets around each of their necks, identical except for slight differences in the worn chains. "How long have you been out here?" "Since morning," Olivia's teeth chattered as she spoke. "Our stepdad said we were too much trouble. He left us here and said we better not come home." Rage flared in Michael's chest. What kind of monster abandons children on Christmas Eve? He swallowed hard, keeping his expression neutral. His mind raced through options. He should call the police. Child services. This was clearly a case of abandonment, possibly abuse. The proper channels existed for exactly this situation. But it was 22 degrees and dropping. Christmas Eve. These children had been alone for at least 12 hours. By the time authorities arrived and processed everything, it would be well past midnight. They'd spend Christmas in an emergency placement facility, separated from everything familiar except their fear. "Well, Sophia and Olivia, I have a son about your age at home. How about you come with me just for tonight? It's warm, there's food, and tomorrow we'll figure everything out together. Does that sound okay?" Olivia's eyes filled with tears. "You really mean it? We can come inside?" The question broke something in Michael. Children asking permission to come in from the cold on Christmas Eve. "Yes, absolutely." He stood slowly, offering his hands. "Come on, let's get you out of this cold." Sophia grabbed Olivia's hand first before reaching for Michael's. Even accepting help, she was protecting her sister. In his truck, with the heat blasting, the girls huddled together in the back seat. Michael caught glimpses of them in the rearview mirror. Olivia kept touching her locket, her fingers trembling. Sophia stared out the window but never let go of her sister's hand. "How old are you girls?" Michael kept his tone conversational. 8, Sophia answered. "Our birthday was in March." Michael's thoughts tumbled as he drove. He'd call the authorities tomorrow morning. Child services would need to get involved. But tonight, these kids deserve to feel safe. They deserve to feel like someone cared. Ethan was 6 years old, full of life and kindness, despite Rachel walking out when he was barely 2. She chased dreams in Los Angeles, leaving behind divorce papers and silence. Michael had spent 4 years building a life for just the two of them. He'd worked his way up from site manager to project director at Westlake Construction before starting his own firm 2 years ago. It wasn't the life he'd imagined, but it was good. It was enough. Now, driving home with two terrified little girls in his back seat, Michael felt something shifting beneath him. The security he'd carefully constructed suddenly seemed fragile, permeable to the world's harshness in ways he hadn't anticipated. When Michael walked through his front door with Sophia and Olivia in tow, Mrs. Baker gasped. The silver-haired neighbor had been watching Ethan for the evening, and Michael saw her taking in the scene. Two shivering children in dirty, thin clothes clinging to each other. "Oh my word, Michael, what's happened?" Mrs. Baker's hand flew to her heart. "I found them behind the grocery store." Michael kept his voice low. "They need help. Can you grab some of your granddaughter's old clothes? I'm going to run them a warm bath." Mrs. Baker didn't ask questions. She nodded and hurried to the phone to call her daughter. In the bathroom, Michael started filling the tub with warm water, testing the temperature carefully. Sophia and Olivia stood in the doorway, still holding hands, watching him with uncertain eyes. "The water will feel good. I'll leave you two alone to get cleaned up, and there'll be clean clothes right outside the door." "Take your time. You're safe here." "Do you promise?" Olivia's voice was small, fragile as spun glass. Michael crouched to their eye level. "I promise no one's going to hurt you." "Not while I'm here." While the girls bathed, Michael heated leftover soup and made sandwiches. His hands shook slightly as he sliced bread. What had these children been through? How long had they been suffering? Who was this stepfather who'd thrown them away like garbage? "Dad?" Ethan's voice came from the hallway. "Mrs. Baker said you brought home some kids." Michael turned to find his son peeking around the corner, his brown hair sticking up in every direction, dinosaur pajamas already on. At 6, Ethan was small for his age but big-hearted, something Michael had worked hard to nurture after his mother's abandonment. "Yeah, buddy. Two little girls who needed help. They're going to stay with us tonight." Ethan's eyes went wide with curiosity. "Are they nice? Do they like dinosaurs?" Despite everything, Michael smiled. "I don't know yet, but I need you to be gentle with them, okay? They've had a really hard day. I'm always gentle." Ethan's serious expression melted Michael's heart. "I'll show them my books. Mrs. Baker says reading helps when you're sad." When Sophia and Olivia emerged from the bathroom 15 minutes later, clean but still skittish, wearing oversized pajamas Mrs. Baker had brought over, Ethan was waiting. He walked straight up to them with the straightforward confidence only a 6-year-old could manage. "I'm Ethan. Do you like dinosaurs? I have 100 dinosaur books. My favorite is the T-Rex because he has small arms but big teeth. Why would someone hurt you?" "Nobody should hurt kids." The twins exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. Olivia nodded shyly. That was all the encouragement Ethan needed. Within minutes, he'd pulled them into the living room, sitting between them on the couch and explaining in great detail the difference between a triceratops and a stegosaurus. His enthusiasm was infectious, and Michael watched as the girls began to relax fractionally. Olivia even smiled when Ethan showed her his favorite T-Rex toy. Michael noticed that both girls still wore their lockets. Their hands kept reaching up to touch them like lifelines, anchors to something important they couldn't let go. Over soup and sandwiches, Michael learned little else about their situation. When he tried to ask more, where they lived, their last name, where their mother was, the girls went quiet, exchanging nervous glances. "It's okay. You don't have to talk about it tonight. Just eat and get warm." Olivia's eyes filled with tears. "You're really letting us stay?" "Of course, it's Christmas Eve. Nobody should be alone on Christmas Eve." That night, Ethan insisted the girls sleep in his room. "They can have my bed, Dad. I'll sleep on the floor in my sleeping bag. It'll be like camping." Michael felt tears prick his eyes as he watched his son, this beautiful boy who'd been abandoned by his own mother, offering everything he had to two strangers because it was the right thing to do. As he tucked all three children into Ethan's room, Michael made a silent promise. Whatever was happening here, he'd make sure these girls were protected. Mr. Michael, Olivia's voice was sleepy. Thank you for bringing us inside. You don't have to thank me, honey. Just sleep. You're safe now. But as Michael closed the door and stood in the hallway, he knew tomorrow would bring complications. Social services, police, questions. The girls would probably be placed in foster care while authorities investigated. The thought of them being scared again, being moved to strangers, made his chest ache. Still, what else could he do? He was a single father with a full-time job and a company to run. He barely managed with just Ethan. Yet those two little girls sleeping in there, they deserved better than what life had given them. It was past midnight when Michael realized he hadn't finished wrapping Ethan's presents. As he sorted through the gifts he'd bought for his son, an idea struck him. He rummaged through Ethan's toy chest, finding a stuffed dinosaur his son had outgrown. From his office, he grabbed a new art set he'd purchased as a client gift. A puzzle from the game closet completed the impromptu collection. Michael stayed up wrapping these simple presents, adding gift tags with the girls' names. Tomorrow might bring uncertainty, but for one morning, those children would know the joy of Christmas. Morning arrived with Ethan's excited footsteps pounding down the hallway at 6 a.m. Michael had barely slept, his mind churning with plans and worries. He'd made coffee and was sitting in the living room when Ethan burst in, followed more hesitantly by the twins. Santa came. Ethan's eyes were wide with wonder. And look, he brought presents for Sophia and Olivia too. The girls froze in the doorway, staring at the packages with their names. Sophia's hand automatically reached for her sister's. These are for us? Sophia whispered, as if she couldn't believe it. Of course. Michael smiled, gesturing toward the tree. It's Christmas. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. But we didn't. You don't need to do anything to deserve Christmas. Michael kept his voice gentle. You just need to be here. The joy on their faces as they opened those simple gifts reminded Michael why this holiday mattered. Ethan was thrilled to share, helping them unwrap things and explaining how each toy worked. By noon, the three children were inseparable, playing on the living room floor while Michael made pancakes shaped like snowmen. As Michael watched them, something began nagging at the edges of his awareness. There was something familiar about the girls, especially their eyes, an unusual shade of hazel green with flecks of gold near the pupils. He'd seen eyes like that before, but couldn't place where. After breakfast, while Ethan showed the girls his room in greater detail, Michael called his friend David Martinez, a lawyer who specialized in family court. You did what? David's voice crackled through the speaker. Mike, you can't just take kids home like stray puppies. There are protocols. I know that. Michael ran a hand through his hair. What was I supposed to do? Leave them in the snow? It was Christmas Eve, for God's sake. No, but you should have called the police immediately. Look, you need to contact social services right away. I'm talking within the hour. The longer you wait, the worse this looks. Michael glanced toward the hallway where the sound of children's laughter drifted from Ethan's room. What's going to happen to them? Best case, emergency foster placement while they investigate. They'll try to locate the mother, assess the stepfather situation. Worst case, temporary group home until placements open up. The system's overloaded, especially during holidays. Michael's stomach twisted. Could they be separated? A heavy pause. It's possible. Sibling sets can be hard to place together, especially older kids. They're 8 years old, David. They're babies. I know, man, David's voice softened, but this is serious. You need to follow proper channels, or you could be accused of kidnapping. After hanging up, Michael leaned against the kitchen counter, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. He'd have to make the call soon, set things in motion. But first, he needed to understand more about what had happened to Sophia and Olivia. He found the girls helping Ethan build a fort out of couch cushions and blankets. The transformation from last night was remarkable. Clean, fed, and playing, they looked like any other children. But when Michael accidentally dropped a cushion, Olivia flinched violently, raising her arms as if to shield her face. The movement was automatic, instinctive, the movement of a child accustomed to blows. White-hot rage flashed through Michael, followed by a wave of protective instinct so powerful it nearly knocked him back. He excused himself to the bathroom, needing a moment to compose his features. When he splashed cold water on his face and looked in the mirror, His hazel green eyes with gold flecks stared back at him. The same eyes as the twins. Coincidence. It had to be. Yet the thought, once formed, refused to dissipate. Michael tried to dismiss it as he returned to the living room, but found himself studying the girls more carefully. The shape of Sophia's eyebrows, the stubborn set of Olivia's chin, familiar in ways he couldn't articulate. When the fort was complete, Michael suggested hot chocolate. Ethan cheered and raced to the kitchen, but Sophia hung back, her expression suddenly serious. "We need to tell you something." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "About why we were at the store." Michael nodded, keeping his expression open. "I'm listening." The story emerged in fragments, pieced together between Sophia's matter-of-fact statements and Olivia's tearful interjections. Their stepfather's name was Vincent Hayes. He hadn't always been cruel. At first, after their mother got sick, he'd seemed caring, taking responsibility for two young children. But then he'd started using something, they didn't know what, that made him angry and unpredictable. He'd hit us when we made noise. Sophia's voice was barely audible. Or when we asked for food. Mom tried to stop him, but she was so sick. She couldn't. Michael's hands clenched involuntarily, knuckles turning white. He forced himself to relax to keep his voice gentle. "What happened to your mom?" "She got really sick. Vincent said she had to go to the hospital, but we never saw her again. He said she didn't want us anymore." Michael's chest tightened. These children had lost their mother and been subjected to abuse, all within the span of months. "Yesterday morning, Vincent woke us up before it was light." Olivia continued, her voice breaking. "He drove us to that dumpster and told us to get out. He said we were too much trouble, too expensive, too loud. He said if we came back, things would be much worse than sleeping in the cold." They'd been there for almost 12 hours before Michael found them. "What's your mom's name?" Michael asked, his heart pounding so hard he wondered if the children could hear it. "Hannah Morrison." Sophia's eyes narrowed slightly. Why? The name hit Michael like a physical blow. Hannah Morrison, his college girlfriend. The woman he'd planned to marry before she'd vanished without explanation 9 years ago. His mother had been the one to tell him the truth, that Hannah had taken money she'd offered her, a substantial amount, and left to be with another man. Someone with better prospects, better family, better everything. Michael had been devastated. He'd tried to find Hannah, to hear it from her own lips, but she'd seemingly disappeared, changed her number, moved away. Eventually, heartbroken and exhausted, he'd stopped looking. He'd met Rachel eventually, but that relationship had been troubled from the start. When she'd left, Michael had poured all his energy into being a good father to Ethan. But now, sitting here with two little girls who might, impossible as it seemed, be connected to his past, Michael felt the foundations of everything he'd believed begin to crack. The timing aligned with sickening precision. Hannah had disappeared 9 years ago. The girls were 8. If she'd been pregnant when she left, Michael needed to see inside those lockets. "Can I ask what's in your necklaces?" "You keep touching them." The girls exchanged looks again, that silent twin communication. Finally, Olivia reached up and opened hers. Inside was a small photograph, worn at the edges but unmistakable. A young woman with bright eyes and a radiant smile. Hannah, the same woman who'd vanished from Michael's life, leaving him heartbroken and confused. "That's our mom." Sophia opened her locket too, revealing the same image from a slightly different angle. "We miss her so much." The room tilted. Michael looked at the girls, really looked at them for the first time with this new information. Their eyes, his eyes, that particular shade of hazel green he saw in the mirror every morning. The shape of Olivia's nose. The way Sophia's eyebrows arched when she was suspicious. The stubborn set of their chins. "Your mom's full name, what is it?" Michael managed, his voice sounding distant to his own ears. "Hannah Vanessa Morrison." Sophia's expression grew worried. "Are you okay, Mr. Michael? You look weird." "I'm fine, just thinking." Michael forced himself to breathe normally. "One last question. When's your birthday?" "March 18th. "Why are you asking all these questions?" "March 18th. 9 months almost to the day after Hannah had disappeared from his life. The coincidence was too precise to be accidental. These girls, these children who'd been abandoned on Christmas Eve, might be his daughters, his children, his flesh and blood. The revelation left Michael reeling. If these were his daughters, Why had Hannah kept them hidden? Why had she told them their mother didn't want them anymore? Had his mother really paid her off to leave? And if they weren't his daughters, well, that might break his heart too. Because in just 12 hours, Sophia and Olivia had burrowed into his life in ways he hadn't expected. I used to know someone named Hannah Morrison a long time ago. Michael kept his voice steady with effort. I'm just surprised by the coincidence. Before the conversation could continue, the doorbell rang. Michael's heart sank as he checked his watch. It was past noon. He'd been so caught up in the revelation about Hannah that he'd forgotten to make the call to social services. Apparently someone else had. When Michael opened the door, he found a petite woman with a no-nonsense expression and a leather portfolio. Mr. Parker, I'm Rebecca Chen from Child Protective Services. We received an anonymous call about 2 minor children in your home. May I come in? Michael stepped aside, his mind racing. Who had called? Mrs. Baker? A neighbor who'd spotted him bringing the girls in last night? Whoever it was, the machinery of the system was now in motion. Rebecca Chen's assessment was thorough and professional. She interviewed Michael first, then the girls separately, taking detailed notes. Her expression remained neutral as Sophia and Olivia recounted their story, but Michael noticed her jaw tighten when they described Vincent's abandonment. I understand you found them last night and provided emergency shelter. Ms. Chen's tone was clinical. While that was compassionate, Mr. Parker, the proper procedure would have been to contact authorities immediately. It was Christmas Eve. They'd been in the cold for 12 hours. Michael kept his voice level. They needed warmth and safety, not more trauma. Ms. Chen's expression softened fractionally. I'm not here to criticize your intentions, Mr. Parker, but you must understand the seriousness of the situation. These children were abandoned by their legal guardian. There are protocols that must be followed. What happens now? Michael dreaded the answer. Ms. Chen closed her portfolio. I'll be filing an emergency custody order. The girls will be placed in temporary foster care while we investigate their home situation and attempt to locate their mother. You'll try to keep them together? Michael's throat tightened at the thought of the twins being separated. We'll try. Ms. Chen's noncommittal answer sent a chill through Michael. But I have to be honest, emergency placements with space for sibling sets are limited. What if I apply to be their foster parent? The words left Michael's mouth before he'd fully formed the thought. Ms. Chen's eyebrows rose. Are you familiar with the foster system, Mr. Parker? No, but I'm willing to learn. These girls have been through enough. They need stability. Becoming a foster parent isn't a spontaneous decision, Mr. Parker. There's training, home studies, background checks. The process typically takes months. But surely there are exceptions for emergency situations? Michael pressed. I'm a business owner with a stable home. I already have a son their age. My background check will come back clean. They're comfortable here. Ms. Chen studied him, her expression unreadable. May I ask why you're so invested in these particular children? You only met them yesterday. Michael hesitated. The truth seemed impossible, even to his own ears. And without a DNA test, it was still just speculation. I just want to help. They deserve better than being shuffled through the system. After a long pause, Ms. Chen nodded slightly. I'll note your interest in the file, but I should warn you, the process is not quick or simple. And there's no guarantee you'd be approved, especially as a single father with a full-time career. As Ms. Chen prepared to leave, Michael made a decision. He needed answers, and he needed them quickly. If there was even a chance these girls were his daughters, he had to know. And he needed to find Hannah, the real Hannah, not the woman his mother had described, the woman who might be the mother of his children. Sophia and Olivia watched Ms. Chen's departure with apprehension. Their earlier Christmas joy evaporated. Are we leaving? Olivia's lip trembled. We don't want to go. Not today. Michael crouched to their level. Ms. Chen is going to look for your mom and figure out some things about Vincent. But I need to ask you something important. Would you be okay staying here with me and Ethan while she does that? Sophia's eyes narrowed suspiciously. Why would you want us to stay? Michael hesitated. How could he explain the complexity of what he was feeling? The possibility that they shared more than just a chance encounter. Because everyone deserves to feel safe and wanted. His words were simple but sincere. And because I think you belong here with us until we figure everything out. The skepticism in Sophia's expression didn't fade, but she nodded slightly. Olivia leaned against her sister, the ever-present hand reaching up to touch her locket. After the girls returned to playing with Ethan, Michael retreated to his office and made a call to Sean Martinez, David's brother and a private investigator Michael had hired in the past for background checks on potential business partners. "I need you to find someone." Michael's voice was tight with urgency. "And I need a DNA test. As soon as possible." "DNA test?" Sean's voice sharpened with interest. "This isn't your usual background check." Michael explained the situation, the words tumbling out in a rush. The abandoned girls, the lockets with Hannah's picture, the timing of her disappearance and their birth, the shared physical traits that seemed more than coincidental. "That's quite a story." Sean's tone was carefully neutral. "You realize how unlikely this sounds?" "I do." Michael ran a hand through his hair. "But I need to know, Sean, and I need to find Hannah. The real Hannah, not whatever story my mother fed me. I'll start right away." Sean's typing was audible in the background. "Hannah Vanessa Morrison disappeared 9 years ago. Last known location? Cleveland, as far as I know. That's where we were in college. But the girls mentioned a hospital recently. She might still be in the area." After hanging up, Michael sat at his desk, staring at the business contract that had seemed so important yesterday. The Bradford development deal represented everything he'd worked for: financial security, professional recognition, a legacy for Ethan. Yet now, with the possibility of 2 more children suddenly in the picture, the contract seemed like just another piece of paper. A tentative knock interrupted his thoughts. Sophia stood in the doorway, her expression guarded. "Is the lady coming back to take us?" Her voice was steady, but Michael could see the fear beneath her composure. "Ms. Chen has to follow certain rules." Michael chose his words carefully. "But I'm going to do everything I can to make sure you and Olivia stay together and stay safe." Sophia studied him with an intensity that belied her 8 years. "You said you knew our mom. Were you friends?" Michael's heart pounded. The truth was complicated, potentially overwhelming for a child. Yet lying seemed worse. "We were very good friends a long time ago. I cared about her very much. Did she care about you too?" Sophia's question was penetrating, insightful. "I thought so." Michael swallowed against the tightness in his throat. Sometimes adults make mistakes, or things happen that they can't control. Sophia's expression remained skeptical, but she nodded slightly before turning to leave. From the doorway, she paused, looking back. "Vincent told us our mom didn't want us anymore. But that wasn't true. She got sick, and then she disappeared. She would never leave us if she had a choice." Her eyes, so like Michael's own, held a fierce certainty. "She loved us more than anything in the world." As Sophia rejoined Ethan and Olivia in the living room, Michael sat motionless, her words echoing in his mind. The Hannah that Sophia described, devoted, loving, aligned with the woman he'd known in college. Not the callous gold digger his mother had described. The disconnection between these versions of Hannah had never seemed more stark. The days after Christmas passed in a blur of activity. Sean was working on locating Hannah and Vincent, while Michael navigated the complexities of the foster care system. The emergency placement hearing was scheduled for December 28th, leaving precious little time to make arrangements. Meanwhile, the girls settled into a cautious routine in the Parker household. Each morning, Michael found small signs of their integration. Olivia's drawings magnetized to the refrigerator, Sophia helping Ethan with a puzzle, both girls setting the table without being asked. They remained watchful, though, especially Sophia. Any unexpected sound or movement could trigger a startled flinch from Olivia, while Sophia positioned herself as a human shield, always vigilant. The night before the hearing, Michael tucked the children into bed, Ethan in his room, the girls in the guest room he'd hastily converted for them. As he turned to leave, Olivia called him back. "Mr. Michael?" She clutched her locket, a gesture he'd come to recognize as self-soothing. "What happens if they can't find our mom?" The question pierced Michael's heart. The truth was, he didn't know. If Hannah truly was ill, or worse, he couldn't bear to complete the thought. "Then we keep looking." He sat on the edge of the bed. "And in the meantime, you stay here with us, if that's what you want." Sophia, who had been pretending to read, lowered her book. "The judge might not let us. I'm going to do everything possible to convince them." Michael met her skeptical gaze directly. I promise, Sophia, I won't stop fighting for you and your sister. Something in his tone must have reached her, because Sophia's rigid posture relaxed fractionally. She nodded once before returning to her book. The family court hearing was held in a small, paneled room that smelled of furniture polish and anxiety. Judge Marian Rodriguez, a stern-faced woman with reading glasses perched on her nose, reviewed the case file while Michael sat beside David, his palms sweating. Ms. Chen presented the facts clinically: the abandonment, Michael's discovery of the girls, their allegations of abuse by Vincent Hayes. The judge listened impassively, occasionally making notes. And the mother's whereabouts? Judge Rodriguez peered over her glasses at Ms. Chen. Unknown at this time, Your Honor. We've initiated a search but have no leads yet. The stepfather, Vincent Hayes, also appears to have left the area. His apartment was vacated, according to the landlord. The judge turned her attention to Michael. Mr. Parker, you've expressed interest in serving as a foster placement for these children, despite having no prior relationship with them. Can you explain your motivation? Michael's throat went dry. The truth that he suspected these might be his biological daughters seemed premature without confirmation. Yet anything less than complete honesty felt wrong. Your Honor, when I found Sophia and Olivia, they were abandoned in freezing temperatures on Christmas Eve. They've suffered trauma and abuse. They need stability and safety while the authorities search for their mother. I can provide that. You're a single father with a full-time job running your own company. Judge Rodriguez's tone was skeptical. How do you propose to care for 3 children under these circumstances? I have flexibility as the owner of my business. My son's nanny has agreed to extend her hours to include the girls. I've already registered them for school beginning January 3rd, and I've arranged for counseling services. The judge's eyebrows rose slightly, either impressed by his preparation or surprised by his presumption. Are you aware of the challenges involved in caring for children who have experienced trauma? I don't pretend to be an expert, Your Honor. Michael met her gaze steadily. But I do understand commitment. These girls deserve someone who won't give up on them, no matter how difficult things get. Judge Rodriguez studied Michael for a long moment before turning back to Ms. Chen. Has Mr. Parker's background check been completed? Preliminary results show no issues, Your Honor. Ms. Chen consulted her notes. His home assessment meets all requirements. The formal foster parent training would typically be required before placement, but given the emergency nature of this case and the limited holiday options, the judge held up a hand, cutting her off. What do the children want? Ms. Chen hesitated. They've expressed a strong preference to stay together and a desire to remain with Mr. Parker until their mother is located. The twins were brought in briefly, answering the judge's gentle questions with cautious politeness. When asked if they felt safe with Michael, both nodded without hesitation. When asked if they understood this was a temporary arrangement while authorities looked for their mother, Sophia's expression clouded. What if you can't find her? The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. After the girls were escorted out, Judge Rodriguez removed her glasses, rubbing the bridge of her nose. This is an unusual situation, Mr. Parker. Typically, we would place these children with experienced foster parents or in an emergency group facility. However, she replaced her glasses, her decision apparently made. Given the holiday constraints, the children's expressed preferences, and Ms. Chen's recommendation, I am granting temporary emergency foster placement with Mr. Parker for a period of 30 days. During this time, Mr. Parker will complete the required training modules, and authorities will continue searching for Hannah Morrison. We will reconvene on January 28th to reassess the situation. The gavel struck with finality, sealing a decision that would change all their lives irrevocably. As Michael left the courtroom, a strange mixture of relief and terror washed over him. For the next 30 days at least, Sophia and Olivia would be safe, but the questions remained. Where was Hannah? What had really happened 9 years ago? And most pressingly, were these children his? The answer came sooner than expected. That evening, as the children built an elaborate blanket fort in the living room, Michael's phone rang. Sean's number flashed on the screen. We got the results. Sean's voice was tense, electric. The DNA test was conclusive, Michael. Probability of paternity, 99.98%. Those girls are your daughters. Michael sank onto his office chair, the phone nearly slipping from his fingers. Though he'd suspected, having confirmation was another thing entirely. He had two 8-year-old daughters he'd never known existed, two children who'd been living with an abusive stepfather while he'd been completely unaware they were even born. And Hannah? Michael's voice was barely audible. That's the other news. Sean paused, and Michael could hear papers rustling. We found her. Hannah Morrison was admitted to Cleveland Memorial Hospital 3 weeks ago with a severe infection. She was unconscious when she arrived, and when she regained consciousness, she immediately asked for her daughters. She's alive? Relief crashed through Michael like a wave. She's in a rehabilitation facility in Cleveland now, recovering. Sean's voice softened. Michael, she's been trying to find the girls since she woke up. No one could tell her where they were. Michael closed his eyes, overwhelmed. Hannah was alive. She hadn't abandoned her daughters. She hadn't chosen to leave. Everything he'd believed for 9 years suddenly inverted, reality reshaping itself around this new truth. I need to see her. The urgency in his voice surprised even himself. I need to talk to her, to understand what happened. I figured you'd say that. Sean's smile was audible. I've already texted you the facility's address and her room number. But Michael, prepare yourself. She's been through a lot. After hanging up, Michael stared at the closed office door, beyond which his son and his newly discovered daughters played, oblivious to how completely their world was about to change again. How did he tell two traumatized 8-year-olds that he was their biological father? How did he explain that their mother was alive, looking for them? How did he process his own tumultuous emotions? Anger at 9 lost years, relief that Hannah was alive, rage at what the girls had suffered, and overwhelming love for children he'd only just met. The next morning, after arranging for Mrs. Baker to watch the children, Michael drove to Cleveland with a heart full of questions and a mind racing with possibilities. The rehabilitation facility was modern but sterile, all beige walls and disinfectant smells. Following a nurse's directions, he found room 342 and paused outside the door, suddenly uncertain. What would Hannah look like after 9 years? What would she think seeing him after all this time? Would she be angry? Relieved? Would she even want to see him? Taking a deep breath, Michael knocked softly before pushing the door open. The woman in the bed looked both achingly familiar and startlingly different from his memories. Thinner, paler, with lines of suffering etched around her eyes and mouth. Her once vibrant brown hair was dull, cut short against her skull. But when she turned toward the door, her eyes, the same eyes he now saw in his daughters, widened with shock. Michael? Hannah's voice was hoarse, disbelieving. How? Why? I have Sophia and Olivia. The words tumbled out. They're safe. They're with me. The sound Hannah made was pure relief, a sob that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside. Oh my God. Oh, thank God. Are they hurt? Are they okay? They're okay. They're safe now. Michael's hands trembled as he stepped closer. Hannah, where have you been? What happened? I was hospitalized. When I woke up, Vincent was gone and the girls were gone. I've been trying to find them for weeks, calling everyone I could think of. No one knew anything. I found them on Christmas Eve. Michael's voice cracked. Abandoned behind a dumpster. Hannah's sob echoed through the room. He left them on the street? My babies. They're safe now. I promise you they're safe. Michael closed his eyes, gathering courage for what came next. Hannah, I need to tell you something. I had a DNA test done. They're mine. Sophia and Olivia are my daughters too. The silence between them stretched, filled only by the soft beeping of medical equipment. You took a DNA test? Hannah whispered. The girls had lockets with your picture. I recognized you, and when I really looked at them, I saw... Why didn't you tell me you were pregnant? Why did you leave? The questions that had haunted him for 9 years finally escaped. I tried, Hannah choked out. Michael, I tried so hard to reach you. But your mother, she stopped me, her breathing ragged. We need to talk, but not like this. Not over the phone. Can you bring them to see me? When? Michael asked, his world reshaping itself with every breath. As soon as possible. Please, I need to see my babies. I need to see you. In that moment, looking at Hannah, the mother of his children, the woman he'd once loved beyond reason, the person his mother had forced from his life, Michael felt something shift irrevocably. The neat compartments of his existence, father to Ethan, successful businessman, self-sufficient widower, dissolved, making space for a messier, more complex reality. A reality that included twin daughters, their mother, and a past that refused to stay buried. Nothing would ever be the same again. And strangely, despite the uncertainty ahead, Michael felt more whole than he had in years. The drive back from Cleveland stretched longer than the 90 minutes shown on Michael's GPS. Every mile marker seemed to pulse with unanswered questions. Hannah's revelations had shattered the foundation of everything he'd believed about the past 9 years. The truth had been buried under layers of manipulation so deep he'd never thought to dig beneath them. Hannah had never left him for another man. She'd never taken his mother's money. When she discovered she was pregnant with twins, she'd been frightened but excited, planning to tell Michael immediately. But Eleanor Parker had found out first. How, Hannah still didn't know, and had arrived at Hannah's apartment with an ultimatum disguised as generosity. Eleanor had offered money to disappear. When Hannah refused, the threats began. Eleanor would destroy Hannah's family financially, get her father fired using business connections, ensure Hannah was branded a gold digger across Cleveland. 19 years of carefully cultivated reputation and power deployed like precision weapons against a pregnant 22-year-old with no resources. Hannah had sent letters, made calls, tried desperately to reach Michael. Nothing got through. Eleanor's interference was absolute, a firewall between the life they could have had together and the separate existences they'd been forced to live. The pregnancy, the birth, the early years with the twins, all of it stolen from Michael by his own mother. Snow began falling as Michael crossed the county line, fat flakes dissolving against the windshield. He pulled into a rest stop, needing a moment to process before facing the children. Pressing his forehead against the steering wheel, Michael finally allowed himself to feel the magnitude of what had happened. 9 years, 2 daughters, a woman he'd once planned to marry. All of it erased, as if by the stroke of a pen. Grief and rage churned together, neither emotion fully expressible. What kind of person stole grandchildren from their own son? What kind of mother deliberately orphaned her son's children? Michael's phone chimed with a text from Mrs. Baker, checking when he'd be home. The ordinary question anchored him back to the present. 3 children waited for him. 3 children who needed stability, not a father unraveling from decades-old betrayals. He straightened, took a deep breath, and pulled back onto the highway. The past couldn't be reclaimed, but the future was still malleable. He could shape it with intention, with awareness. When Michael arrived home, Mrs. Baker met him at the door with concerned eyes. "They've been asking where you went. Is everything all right?" Michael nodded, not trusting his voice yet. The sounds of the children playing drifted from the living room. Ethan's excited chatter, Olivia's soft laughter, Sophia's measured responses. Normal sounds, family sounds. He found them building a massive castle from Ethan's blocks. Olivia spotted him first, her face lighting up. "You came back." The simple joy in her expression twisted something in Michael's chest. "Of course I did. I'll always come back." Sophia studied him with her characteristic intensity, her eyes, his eyes, narrowing slightly. "Where did you go?" Michael had prepared for this question during the drive home. The full truth would be overwhelming, especially delivered all at once. But he wouldn't lie to them, not even by omission. "I went to Cleveland, to the hospital. I found your mom." The blocks in Olivia's hands clattered to the floor. Sophia went completely still, her face draining of color. Is she... She's alive." Michael knelt to their level, his voice gentle. "She's been sick, but she's getting better. And she's been looking for you both since she woke up in the hospital. She didn't know where Vincent had taken you." Tears filled Olivia's eyes. "She wants us? More than anything in the world." Michael opened his arms, and Olivia flew into them. Sophia remained frozen, suspicious hope warring with ingrained caution on her face. "Why should we believe you?" Her voice trembled despite the challenging words. "Because tomorrow, if you want, I'll take you to see her." Michael met her gaze directly. "She wants to see you as soon as possible." Sophia's composure cracked, a single tear tracking down her cheek. "Is she coming home with us?" The question carried layers of meaning Michael couldn't yet answer. Home. This penthouse where they'd spent less than a week? With us, including Michael and Ethan? Or just the twins? The complex reality of their situation couldn't be resolved in a single conversation. She's still recovering. For now, she needs to stay at the medical center. But you'll be able to visit her and talk to her on the phone as much as you want. Sophia nodded, processing this new reality. Her hand reached automatically for her locket. The physical connection to Hannah suddenly transformed from memento to promise. That night, after tucking the children in, Michael made another call to Sean. The DNA results had answered one question, but others remained urgently unanswered. I need everything you can find on Vincent Hayes, the stepfather. Michael's voice was cold with purpose. Criminal record, known associates, current whereabouts. He abandoned those girls to freeze. I want to know exactly who we're dealing with. Sean's reply came with professional detachment. Already on it, preliminary search shows multiple arrests, domestic violence, possession with intent to distribute. Charges dropped each time. Someone's been protecting this guy. Find out who. And Sean? Michael paused, the weight of what he was about to say settling in his chest. I need you to investigate my mother, too. I need to know exactly what she did, how far it went. Bank records, phone records, anything that could show she deliberately kept my children from me. The silence stretched between them. That's a serious request, Michael. She stole 9 years from me, from my daughters. She knew they existed, and she made a choice every day to keep that information from me. I need to know the full extent of it. After hanging up, Michael sat in the darkness of his home office, staring at the framed photograph of Eleanor that had occupied pride of place on his desk since he'd started the company. His mother, elegantly dressed at the ribbon cutting of Parker Construction's first major commercial project. She'd been his biggest supporter, his fiercest advocate, or so he'd believed. Michael removed the photograph from its frame and placed it face down in the desk drawer. Tomorrow would bring difficult conversations, with the twins, with Hannah, eventually with Eleanor. But tonight he allowed himself to absorb the seismic shift in his identity. Father not of one child, but 3. Not a man abandoned by his college girlfriend, but a man deliberately separated from the woman who carried his children. Morning arrived with Sean's preliminary report. Vincent Hayes had indeed disappeared from his Cleveland apartment, but his credit card had been used at a gas station in Westlake yesterday, less than 2 miles from Michael's home. The timing couldn't be coincidental. Vincent knew the girls were with Michael, was possibly watching the house. The danger Michael had assumed was past suddenly loomed immediate and tangible. Michael immediately contacted Westlake Police Department to file a report. The officer who took his statement seemed skeptical at first. A man legally married to the girl's mother had a right to know their whereabouts, despite the abandonment allegation. But when Michael mentioned the open child endangerment case in Cleveland and Vincent's criminal record, the officer's demeanor shifted. He promised to increase patrols in the neighborhood and took Vincent's description and vehicle information. Security measures installed, Michael prepared the children for their hospital visit. Ethan was included in the trip, a decision Michael had wrestled with before concluding that separation would only create more anxiety for everyone. The boy's innocent excitement about meeting the twins' mom provided a counterbalance to Sophia's tense anticipation and Olivia's nervous chatter. The rehabilitation facility seemed less intimidating in daylight, its institutional beige softened by winter sunshine streaming through large windows. Hannah had been moved to a private room, a small concession Michael had arranged through his company's connections. He paused outside her door, kneeling to address the twins. Your mom is very excited to see you. She's still recovering, so she might look different than you remember. She might get tired easily, but she loves you very much. Olivia nodded solemnly. Sophia's expression remained guarded, but her hand reached for the doorknob with barely contained urgency. The moment the twins entered the room and saw Hannah, time seemed to suspend. Hannah struggled to sit upright, arms already extending. Then motion exploded as both girls rushed forward. They collided with their mother in a tangle of limbs and tears, words tumbling over each other in an incomprehensible flood of "Mom" and "missed you," and "thought you were gone forever." Hannah gathered them close, her face transfigured by joy despite the oxygen tube and IV lines. Michael and Ethan hung back by the door, witnessing a reunion both intensely intimate and achingly public. When Hannah finally looked up, her eyes meeting Michael's over the heads of their daughters, 9 years of separation compressed into a single exchanged glance. Thank you. Hannah's lips formed the words silently. Michael nodded, emotion closing his throat. Ethan tugged at his hand, face solemn with 6-year-old understanding. Is that their real mom? Yes, buddy, that's their mom. She looks nice. Ethan's assessment was simple but perceptive. Is she coming to live with us too? The question hung in the air, articulating the uncertainty that hovered at the edges of this fragile new configuration. Michael squeezed his son's hand, buying time to formulate an answer that wouldn't promise more than he could deliver. Hannah's in-room phone rang, interrupting the moment. She reached for it, still cradling Olivia with her other arm. Her expression shifted as she listened, joy fading to concern, then hardening to determination. When she hung up, her gaze immediately sought Michael's. That was my doctor. Vincent called the main desk asking for my room number. Michael, he knows I'm here. The twins stiffened at the mention of their stepfather. Sophia's arm tightened protectively around her mother's shoulders. Olivia began to tremble. He won't get near you. Michael moved forward, unconsciously positioning himself between the door and the hospital bed. I've already filed reports with both Cleveland and Westlake police. They're looking for him. Hannah's expression remained troubled. Vincent is cunning, and he has connections. People who protect him, warn him when police are getting close. Michael's jaw tightened. That stops now. I've hired security for your room, and I'm having the house monitored. He can't hurt any of you anymore. For the next hour, the atmosphere gradually lightened as Hannah shared stories of the twins' early years. Their first steps, first words, the way they'd communicated in their own language before proper speech. Michael absorbed every detail like parched earth receiving rain, trying to reconstruct the lost years through Hannah's memories. When Hannah began showing signs of fatigue, Michael gathered the children to leave. Sophia balked, clinging to her mother's hand. I want to stay with Mom. You'll come back tomorrow. Hannah stroked her daughter's hair. And the next day and the next, I promise I'm not going anywhere. The visit had answered some questions while raising dozens more. As they drove home, Michael's mind churned with practicalities. Hannah would need another 3 weeks of rehabilitation. Then what? Where would she live? How would they co-parent children who barely knew him as their father? And overshadowing everything, how would they protect the family from Vincent? Sean's call that evening brought partial answers. Vincent Hayes had a history of drug distribution with ties to a Cleveland syndicate. His pattern after arrest was consistent, bail posted by unnamed associates, witnesses suddenly recanting, charges mysteriously dropped. His criminal enterprises provided enough income to maintain leverage over Hannah, who'd been financially dependent on him since the twins were toddlers. But perhaps most disturbing were Sean's findings about Eleanor. Bank records showed regular payments to a private investigator for 8 years, the same investigator who traced Hannah to Cleveland after she left campus. Eleanor had known exactly where Hannah was, had monitored the birth of the twins, had tracked their lives from a clinical distance while ensuring Michael remained ignorant of their existence. It wasn't just a single act of interference. It was sustained, deliberate separation spanning nearly a decade. Michael ended the call feeling hollowed out, scraped raw by revelation after revelation. He moved through the evening routine with the children on autopilot. Dinner, baths, story time. His mind elsewhere, calculating confrontations to come. After the children were asleep, Michael finally made the call he had been dreading. Eleanor answered on the second ring, her voice warm with familiar affection that now seemed grotesque in its falseness. Michael, darling, what a lovely surprise. I was just thinking about you and Ethan. How are you both? The casual inquiry, as if nothing had changed, as if she hadn't engineered the greatest trauma of his life, sent a wave of cold rage through Michael's body. I know what you did. Each word emerged precise, controlled. I know about Hannah, about the twins, about all of it. The silence from Eleanor's end stretched, broken only by the sound of her breathing. When she finally spoke, her voice had transformed. Harder, defensive. I don't know what you're talking about. Hannah Morrison, my daughters, Sophia and Olivia, the private investigator you hired to track them for 8 years while keeping me in the dark. Michael's grip on the phone tightened. I have evidence, Mother. Bank statements, reports with your signature. I know. Another pause. This one calculating. Darling, you're upset. Let's discuss this in person. Come to brunch tomorrow and I'm not coming to your house. Michael cut her off. You're coming here. You're going to look at the children you kept from me, and you're going to explain to my face why you thought you had the right to steal 9 years of their lives from me. Eleanor's voice chilled. That girl was beneath you. She would have trapped you, ruined your future. Everything I built for you would have been squandered on some college fling, and her illegitimate don't. Michael's interruption was volcanic, the single word containing the full measure of his fury. Don't you dare call my daughters illegitimate. Don't you dare justify what you did. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., my house. Be here. The next morning dawned gray and threatening, the sky heavy with unshed snow. Michael had slept poorly, torn between anger at his mother and anxiety about the coming confrontation. How much should the children witness? How could he shield them from the ugliness while still ensuring Eleanor faced the consequences of her actions? In the end, he arranged for Mrs. Baker to take the children to her apartment in the building for the duration of Eleanor's visit. Some truths were too caustic, too adult for young ears. Eleanor arrived precisely at 10, impeccably dressed in a wool coat and leather gloves, her silver hair arranged in its customary elegant twist. She swept into the penthouse with practiced confidence, but her eyes darted around the space, registering the evidence of children. Colored drawings magnetized to the refrigerator, small shoes by the door, a forgotten hair ribbon on the coffee table. Where are they? Eleanor's voice was tight with something that might have been apprehension. Not here. Michael stood with his arms crossed. I didn't want them to witness this conversation. Relief flickered across Eleanor's features, quickly suppressed. So melodramatic, Michael. I did what any mother would do to protect her son's future. You were 23, barely out of college, with your whole life ahead of you. I had a right to know I was going to be a father. Michael's control slipped, emotion bleeding into his voice. You robbed me of my children's births, first steps, first words. You robbed them of their father. Who gave you the right to make that decision? Eleanor's chin lifted, defiance hardening her expression. I built everything we have. This company, this lifestyle. That girl would have destroyed it all with her neediness, her background, her what, mother? Michael stepped closer. Her working class parents? Her scholarship status? Or was it just that you couldn't control her the way you controlled everyone else in my life? A flush spread across Eleanor's cheekbones. She was manipulative after your money. I didn't have money then. Michael's frustration erupted. I was a student with debt, remember? You convinced me she'd taken a payoff, that she'd chosen money over love. It was all lies. Eleanor's gaze dropped to the floor, the first sign of discomfort she displayed. I did what I thought was best. You weren't ready for the responsibility of children. Your career would have suffered. Everything would have been different. Yes, Michael's voice softened with grief for that lost possibility. I would have had 9 more years with my daughters. Ethan would have grown up with sisters from the beginning. Hannah and I might have built a life together. Everything would have been different, and you had no right to take that choice from us. Eleanor gathered herself, drawing dignity around her like armor. What's done is done. You can't change the past. What matters is what happens now. She smoothed her already perfect hair. I assume you'll want to establish paternity legally, perhaps seek custody arrangements. I can recommend excellent attorneys who you don't understand. Michael shook his head, incredulous at her pivot to practicalities. This isn't something you can manage away. You manipulated, lied, and interfered in my life in ways that caused real harm. To me, to Hannah, to innocent children. There are consequences for that kind of behavior. What consequences? Eleanor's voice sharpened with the first hint of fear. Michael moved to his desk, removing a folder Sean had delivered that morning. Financial consequences, for a start. Every penny you paid to monitor Hannah and the girls, to keep them hidden from me, you'll pay that amount plus interest to a trust for their education. His finger tapped another document. Legal consequences. Hannah has grounds for serious civil claims against you. And personal consequences. You're cut off, mother, from me, from Ethan, from the girls, from the company, from all of it. Eleanor paled. You can't mean that. I'm your mother, I'm Ethan's grandmother, and you could have been Sophia and Olivia's grandmother too. Michael's voice caught. But you chose power over family, control over love. Those aren't choices a mother makes. They're choices a tyrant makes. Eleanor's composure cracked, her carefully maintained facade crumbling to reveal genuine distress. Everything I did was for you, to protect you, to ensure your success. No, Michael's denial was gentle but absolute. It was for you, for your vision of what my life should be, for your need to control every aspect of my existence. That's not love, Mother, that's possession. Eleanor sank onto the couch, suddenly looking older than her 60 years. What do you want from me? Tears threatened, her voice unsteady. Michael considered the question. What did he want? Apologies couldn't restore lost years. Reparations couldn't heal broken trust. In the end, only one answer mattered. I want you to understand what you took from us, what you can never give back. I want you to live with that understanding. Eleanor nodded slowly, a tear escaping despite her iron control. And will I ever see them? The grandchildren I didn't allow myself to know? Michael hadn't expected the question, or the genuine grief behind it. He'd anticipated defensiveness, perhaps anger, but not this vulnerability, not this crack in the formidable Eleanor Parker's armor. I don't know, that depends on you, on whether you can acknowledge the harm you've caused, not just to me, but to Hannah and the girls, on whether you can accept boundaries and respect our decisions as parents. It depends on whether you can love them for who they are, not for how they fit into your plans. Eleanor gathered her purse, preparing to leave. Her movements were less assured now, the confident businesswoman replaced by an aging mother facing the consequences of her choices. I never thought of them as real. Eleanor paused at the door, not meeting Michael's gaze. In my mind, they were abstractions, obstacles, not little girls with your eyes and your smile, not children who might have loved their grandmother. I never allowed myself to think of them that way. It would have made what I was doing impossible. After Eleanor left, Michael stood in the silent penthouse, absorbing the impact of her admission. His anger remained, a banked fire that would likely burn for years to come. But beneath it lay a more complex emotion, pity for a woman whose fear of losing control had cost her the chance to know her own grandchildren. The children returned from Mrs. Baker's full of stories and excitement. Michael observed them with new awareness. Sophia's thoughtful intensity, Olivia's gentle sensitivity, Ethan's wholehearted enthusiasm. 3 children who deserved better than adult conflicts and decades-old resentments. 3 children who needed stability, love, and protection. Protection that became more urgently necessary the following day when Michael received a call from the twins' new school. A man matching Vincent's description had been spotted watching the playground during recess. He'd fled when approached by security, but the incident confirmed Michael's worst fears. Vincent hadn't given up. He was escalating, becoming bolder in his surveillance. The police report filed after the incident provided little comfort. Without direct threats or contact, they could increase patrols but couldn't arrest Vincent for standing on a public sidewalk. The legal system Michael had always trusted suddenly seemed inadequate, its protections flimsy against a determined predator. That evening, while helping Sophia with homework, Michael noticed her distraction. She kept glancing toward the windows, though the blinds were drawn. Her pencil tapped an anxious rhythm against her math workbook. Is Vincent going to take us away? Her voice was carefully controlled, but fear lurked beneath the words. No, absolutely not. Michael set aside the worksheet, giving her his full attention. He can't take you away. Sophia's eyes, so like his own, searched his face for reassurance. He said he would. If we ever told anyone what he did, he said nobody would believe us, and he'd find us, and things would be much worse. The matter-of-fact recitation of threats made to a child turned Michael's blood to ice. He's wrong. People do believe you, the police, the judges, me, your mom, and we won't let him near you again. Sophia's gaze dropped to her hands. You don't understand. Vincent has friends, scary men who come to the apartment sometimes. They give him money and drugs, and he does things for them. She swallowed hard. One of them is a police officer. I saw his badge once. That's why Vincent never stays in jail. The revelation sent shockwaves through Michael's understanding. understanding of the situation. Not just a drug dealer with connections, but potentially corrupt law enforcement involved. The threat level had just increased exponentially. Thank you for telling me this, Sophia. It's important information, and it's brave of you to share it. Michael kept his voice steady despite his internal alarm. I'm going to talk to some people who can help us make sure Vincent stays away for good. Sophia studied him, weighing his words with her characteristic seriousness. She seemed to reach a decision, nodding once before returning to her math problems. Michael waited until the children were asleep before calling Sean with the new information. The private investigator's reaction confirmed the gravity of the situation. If there's corrupt law enforcement involved, this gets complicated fast. Sean's voice was grim. We need to be careful who we trust with information. I have some contacts in internal affairs who might be able to help, but it'll take time. Time felt like the one resource they didn't have. Vincent was growing bolder, the threat more immediate with each passing day. The next morning brought unexpected complications. Rebecca Chen arrived for her scheduled home visit to find Michael deep in conversation with the security consultant he'd hired to upgrade the penthouse's systems. Her expression shifted from professional neutrality to concern as she absorbed the obvious security measures being implemented. Camera installations, enhanced door locks, panic buttons. Is there something I should know about, Mr. Parker? Her clipboard poised, pen ready. Michael hesitated. Revealing Vincent's escalating behavior might raise concerns about the children's safety in his home, but concealing potential dangers from Child Protective Services would be worse. Vincent Hayes has been spotted near the house and at the children's school. Michael kept his voice level. I'm taking appropriate precautions to ensure the girl's safety. Ms. Chen's pen moved across her clipboard, recording this development. Have threats been made? Has he attempted contact with the children? No direct contact. But given his history of violence and the circumstances of his abandoning the girls, we're not taking chances. The social worker's expression remained neutral, but Michael detected a shift in her assessment. When she spoke again, her tone carried new weight. Mr. Parker, while I commend your protective instincts, I need to be clear. If Vincent Hayes poses an active threat to these children, we may need to reconsider their placement. The safety of the minors is our primary concern. The implication hit Michael like a physical blow. Are you suggesting the girls would be safer somewhere else? Separated from each other? Away from the support systems they're just beginning to trust? Ms. Chen softened slightly at his distress. I'm not making any recommendations at this point, but I am obligated to include all safety considerations in my report. If the children's current environment exposes them to potential harm, even through no fault of yours, we must evaluate all options. After she left, Michael stood in the center of his living room, surrounded by half-installed security equipment, feeling more powerless than he had since finding the girls behind that dumpster. The very measures he was taking to protect them might be used as evidence they should be removed from his care. The irony was bitter enough to choke on. For the first time, Michael understood viscerally what Hannah must have felt 9 years ago. Trapped by circumstances, fighting institutional forces with vastly more power, desperate to protect children she loved against threats that seemed to multiply by the hour. When Sean called that afternoon, Michael was sitting in his home office, researching options he'd never thought he'd consider. Relocating the entire family, changing identities, leaving everything behind to ensure the children's safety. We've got something. Sean's voice carried the first hint of optimism in days. One of Vincent's associates just got picked up on an unrelated warrant. He's facing serious time, and he's willing to talk to shave years off his sentence. He's naming names, including Vincent's and his police connection. Michael's grip on the phone tightened. What does this mean for us? It means Vincent's about to have bigger problems than finding the girls. Sean's satisfaction was evident. The FBI is taking over the case. Drug distribution across state lines, corruption, the works. They're organizing a sweep, picking up everyone involved simultaneously so nobody can warn the others. Relief rushed through Michael, so intense it left him lightheaded. When? Tomorrow morning. They're finalizing the warrants now. Keep the security measures in place just in case. But with any luck, by this time tomorrow, Vincent Hayes will be in federal custody with no chance of bail. The news should have brought unalloyed relief, But Michael found himself unable to fully celebrate. Too many promises had been broken. Too many systems had failed these children already. Until Vincent was actually behind bars, the threat remained real. That evening, Michael visited Hannah alone, leaving the children with Mrs. Baker and the newly installed security team. Hannah had made remarkable progress in the weeks since he'd found her. Color had returned to her face, and she'd begun physical therapy to regain strength after her extended hospitalization. "They're taking the girls?" Hannah's distress was immediate when Michael explained Ms. Chen's concerns. "Not yet, maybe not at all." Michael sat beside her bed, taking her hand. "But we need to be prepared for the possibility. Chen has to include the security concerns in her report, and the judge might decide emergency foster placement is safer." Safer than with their father? Hannah's disbelief mirrored his own. "That's insane. They've already been traumatized by separation. Taking them from you now, just when they're starting to feel secure, would cause more harm than good." Michael nodded, drawing comfort from her automatic alignment with him. "Still, we need a backup plan. If the worst happens, if they try to separate the girls, we run." Hannah's response was immediate, fierce. "We take the children and we disappear until Vincent is behind bars and the legal system recognizes you as their father." Her fingers tightened around his. "I won't let them hurt my babies again. Not the system, not Vincent, not anyone." The vehemence of her response startled Michael. This was a side of Hannah he'd never seen. The mother bear, willing to defy laws and conventions to protect her young. It reminded him of how little he truly knew this version of Hannah, shaped by 9 years of struggles he hadn't shared. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that." Michael squeezed her hand gently. "There's a strong chance Vincent will be arrested tomorrow. The FBI is involved now." Hannah's relief was visible, her body sagging against the pillows. "You have no idea what it would mean for him to be truly gone from our lives. To not have to look over my shoulder anymore. To not fear every knock on the door." For the first time, Michael fully registered the toll the past years had taken on Hannah. Not just the physical illness that had hospitalized her, but the constant state of vigilance, the chronic stress of living with an abusive, volatile man while trying to protect 2 small children. "Why did you stay with him?" The question escaped before he could consider its impact. "I'm not blaming you, Hannah. I just want to understand." Hannah's gaze dropped to their joined hands. "At first, it was financial necessity. I was alone with infant twins, working 2 jobs, barely keeping us housed and fed." She swallowed hard. "Vincent seemed kind at the beginning, helpful. By the time I realized who he really was, he had control of our finances, our housing, everything. He made it clear that if I tried to leave, he'd find us." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "And he'd hurt the girls to punish me." The matter-of-fact recitation of her trapped existence hollowed out Michael's chest. "I'm so sorry, Hannah. I should have looked harder for you. I should have questioned what my mother told me." Hannah shook her head. "Eleanor made sure you couldn't find me. She paid my landlord to forward my mail, had my phone disconnected. She told people at school I'd transferred. She was very thorough." Her gaze lifted to meet his. "What matters now is that you found the girls. You're giving them the security and love they deserve. You're giving us a second chance at being a family." The word family hung between them, loaded with implications neither was ready to fully examine. They were connected irrevocably through their children, their shared past, their violated trust. But what that meant for their future remained uncertain, a question mark hovering over lives in transition. Dawn broke the next morning with the promised FBI operation already underway. Michael received updates from Sean throughout the early hours. Warrants served, suspects detained, evidence seized. By 9 a.m., confirmation arrived. Vincent Hayes was in federal custody, along with 11 other members of the drug distribution network, including a Cleveland police sergeant who'd been on the syndicate's payroll for years. The relief that flooded through Michael's body was so profound, it left him weak-kneed, leaning against the kitchen counter while the children ate breakfast, oblivious to the seismic shift in their security status. Vincent's arrest removed the most immediate threat to their safety, but other challenges remained. Establishing Michael's legal paternity, integrating Hannah into their lives once she was released from rehabilitation, helping the twins process their trauma. The road ahead would be neither straight nor simple, But for the first time since Christmas Eve, Michael felt the weight on his shoulders lighten fractionally. They had time now. Time to heal, time to build, time to become whatever version of family they were meant to be. When Michael told the twins about Vincent's arrest, their reactions split along their distinct personality lines. Olivia burst into tears of relief, while Sophia received the news with suspicious caution, as if waiting for the other shoe to drop. "He'll get out again." Sophia's voice was flat with certainty. "He always does. Not this time." Michael crouched to her eye level. "The FBI has him now, not just local police. And they have evidence from many people about his crimes." Sophia studied his face, searching for reassurance. "You promise?" "I promise he won't hurt you again." Michael chose his words with care, making a commitment he knew he could keep. "Whatever happens, you're safe now. With me, with your mom, with people who love you." For the first time since Christmas Eve, Sophia initiated physical contact, throwing her arms around Michael's neck in a fierce hug. The gesture, unexpected and profound, broke something open inside him, a dam holding back emotions too complex to name. He gathered her close, this daughter he'd only just found, this serious, protective child who carried burdens no 8-year-old should bear. Over Sophia's shoulder, Michael caught Olivia's gaze. She watched the embrace with wistful uncertainty until Michael extended an arm to include her. She rushed forward, completing the circle. For a suspended moment, Michael held his daughters, not just legally under his protection, but emotionally beginning to trust in his constancy. The road of pain that had led them to this moment receded slightly, overshadowed by the possibility of healing ahead. Later that day, Michael received a text from Ms. Chen. The home visit report had been filed with Judge Rodriguez, security concerns included, but contextualized by Vincent's arrest. The recommendation remained unchanged. Continued placement with Michael, with supervised visits from Hannah as her recovery progressed. That evening, Dr. Sarah Evans arrived for the twins' first therapy session. The child psychologist had come highly recommended by the hospital's trauma unit, experienced with cases of abuse and abandonment, but with an approach that emphasized resilience rather than victimhood. "I'm here to help you understand your big feelings and find good ways to express them, Doctor." Evans set out art supplies on the dining room table as she spoke to the twins. "Sometimes when hard things happen, our feelings get stuck inside like butterflies in a jar. My job is to help you open the jar safely." Sophia regarded the psychologist with her usual caution, but Olivia seemed intrigued by the metaphor. "I have lots of butterflies stuck inside." Her hand pressed against her chest. "Sometimes they bump around so hard I can't breathe." Dr. Evans nodded, taking the admission seriously. "That's called anxiety, Olivia. It's a very normal reaction to scary experiences. We're going to work on ways to calm those butterflies and help them fly in formation instead of bumping around." The session continued with seemingly simple activities: drawing pictures of safe places, creating worry dolls from pipe cleaners, practicing breathing exercises. Michael observed from the kitchen, giving the girls space while remaining visible for reassurance. Evans' approach was gentle but direct, creating safe containers for difficult emotions without forcing disclosures before the children were ready. When the session ended, Dr. Evans asked to speak with Michael privately. In his office, she outlined her impressions with clinical precision. "They're remarkably resilient children, Mr. Parker. Despite significant trauma, they've maintained strong attachment capabilities and age-appropriate development. That speaks to someone providing consistent love and protection despite the circumstances, likely their mother." Michael nodded, a fresh wave of respect for Hannah washing through him. She tried to shield them from the worst of it, even when she was ill. Evans made notes on her tablet. "Sophia has taken on a protective role toward her sister and mother, a common pattern in abuse situations. She's hypervigilant, slow to trust, quick to anticipate threats. Olivia experiences more obvious anxiety symptoms, nightmares, somatic complaints, emotional regulation difficulties. Both girls show signs of food insecurity and fear of abandonment." The clinical assessment of his daughter's wounds made Michael's chest ache. "What can I do to help them?" "Consistency is key. Regular routines, clear boundaries, predictable responses." Dr. Evans looked up from her notes. "They need to relearn that adults can be trusted, that expressing needs doesn't lead to punishment, that their world won't collapse without warning." Her expression softened slightly, and they need to know it's safe to be children. They've been carrying adult burdens for too long. After Dr. Evans left, Michael found himself standing in the doorway of the guest room that had become the twins' bedroom. They were playing a board game with Ethan, their faces animated in ways that made them look their actual age. For brief, precious moments, they forgot to be vigilant, forgot to monitor threats, forgot to protect. They simply played, as children should. The sight filled Michael with fierce determination. These moments of childhood joy shouldn't be rarities. They should be the foundation on which his daughters built their lives. Whatever obstacles remained, legal, emotional, practical, Michael would face them. For the chance to see Sophia laugh without looking over her shoulder. For Olivia's butterflies to fly in formation rather than panic. For all three of his children to grow up knowing absolute security in his love. The next morning, Michael visited Hannah with news of the therapy session and Vincent's continued detention. She listened intently, absorbing every detail about the children, asking insightful questions about Dr. Evans' approach. Her medical improvement was evident. Color in her cheeks, stronger voice, longer periods of alertness. My doctors say I can be discharged next week. Hannah broached the subject carefully. I'll still need outpatient therapy, but I can manage daily activities on my own. The statement hung between them, its implications complex. Hannah would need somewhere to live, somewhere near the children, accessible during her continued recovery, but separate enough to allow everyone space to adjust to their new reality. I've been thinking about that. Michael had indeed spent considerable time weighing options. There's a 2-bedroom apartment available in my building, on the 3rd floor. It would give you independence but keep you close to the girls, if that's what you want. Hannah's eyes filled with tears. You'd do that for me? After everything? Not after everything. Because of everything. Michael chose his words deliberately. You're their mother, Hannah. You fought to protect them when I couldn't. They need you in their lives, healthy, strong, present. We'll figure out the rest as we go. Hannah's hand found his, fingers intertwining with natural ease, as if the gesture remembered what their conscious minds were still reconciling. 9 years ago, we were planning a future together. Now we're planning a future for our children. She smiled softly. Life never moves in straight lines, does it? Michael looked at their joined hands, the simple human connection bridging past and present. No, it cycles back on itself sometimes, giving us second chances we never thought we'd have. The apartment Hannah moved into 3 weeks after Vincent's arrest bore little resemblance to the sterile rehabilitation facility where she'd spent the previous month. Sunlight streamed through windows uncovered by medical equipment, fresh flowers brightened the kitchen counter, and photographs of the twins lined the walls. Michael had hired movers to retrieve her personal belongings from Cleveland, carefully supervised by police to preserve evidence for the upcoming trial. For the first time in years, Hannah existed in a space untainted by fear. She moved through the room slowly, reacquainting herself with freedom, the simple pleasure of opening a door without bracing for what might lie beyond it. The children's response to her proximity transformed with each visit. Ethan, with his uncomplicated 6-year-old heart, adopted Hannah immediately, thrilled by her stories and willingness to build elaborate dinosaur scenarios on the living room floor. Olivia blossomed under her mother's consistent presence, nightmares receding as security returned. Sophia remained watchful longest, her trust rebuilding in incremental steps, each successful visit reinforcing that Hannah wouldn't disappear again. Michael observed these evolving relationships with complex emotions. Joy at his children connecting with their mother competed with uncertainty about his own role in this reconfigured family. A resurging attraction to Hannah felt both familiar and entirely new. Complicated by 9 years of separate lives and responsibilities neither had imagined when they'd fallen in love as college students. Co-parenting developed its own rhythm. Hannah joined them for dinners 3 nights a week. Michael brought the children to her apartment on weekend mornings. They attended school conferences together, therapy sessions with Dr. Evans, follow-up meetings with Miss Chen. Gradually, they created family rituals unmarked by shadows, Sunday pancake breakfasts, Thursday game nights, bedtime stories with all 3 children piled onto Ethan's bed. Spring arrived with tentative warmth, mirroring the cautious thawing between Michael and Hannah. Their conversations, initially centered on the children, expanded to include memories of college days and discoveries of who they'd become during their years apart. Hannah described her nursing career before illness had sidelined her. Michael shared stories of building his company after leaving his mother's firm. Small confidences exchanged like precious gifts, bridging the chasm Eleanor had created. One evening in April, after the children were asleep, Michael and Hannah sat on his balcony, watching city lights flicker against the darkening sky. The comfortable silence between them felt like its own form of intimacy. I keep thinking about all the parallel lives we might have lived. Hannah's voice was soft, reflective. If your mother hadn't interfered, if I'd found a way to reach you despite her, if we'd raised the twins together from the beginning. Michael watched moonlight play across her face, rediscovering familiar contours transformed by time and experience. Those lives exist somewhere, I suppose, in some parallel universe where things happen differently. Hannah smiled, a hint of sadness lingering at the corners. Do you think those versions of us are happier? The question penetrated deeper than Michael expected, touching something fundamental about choice, fate, and forgiveness. He considered his response carefully. I think they're different, but I'm not sure they're happier. Her expression invited him to continue. Everything we've been through, separate and together, has shaped us into the people we are now. My years with Ethan, your fierce protection of the twins. Even the pain has made us who we are. And I'm starting to think these versions of us, the real, scarred, experienced versions, might be better equipped to build something lasting than those idealized younger selves. Hannah's eyes glistened in the darkness. You always did see the bigger picture, better than anyone. The moment stretched between them, laden with unspoken possibilities. Michael reached across the space separating them, his fingers brushing Hannah's. The simple contact sent warmth cascading through his chest, a physical reminder of connections that had survived against impossible odds. Legal proceedings moved forward with methodical precision. DNA testing formally established Michael's paternity. Judge Rodriguez amended the twins' birth certificates to include his name. Vincent's federal case progressed toward an inevitable guilty plea as evidence mounted and co-conspirators turned state's witness. The corrupt police sergeant implicated in Sean's investigation was suspended pending criminal charges. By early May, Michael and Hannah had established legal joint custody of the twins, a victory that felt both monumental and like the simplest acknowledgement of reality. The girls would continue living primarily with Michael and Ethan while maintaining regular time with Hannah as she completed her recovery. The day the custody agreement was finalized, Michael took the entire family to the lakefront park for a celebratory picnic. The weather cooperated with perfect spring warmth, blue skies stretching endlessly above the water. The children raced ahead toward the playground, their voices carrying on the breeze. Hannah walked beside Michael, their pace unhurried. When she finally spoke, her words carried the weight of careful consideration. I've been offered a position at Westlake Memorial, in the pediatric unit. They want me to start in June, part-time until my stamina improves. Michael's heart leapt at the implications. Hannah establishing permanent roots in their community, their family configuration stabilizing beyond immediate crisis. That's wonderful. You'll be brilliant with the children there. Hannah nodded, hesitation flickering across her features. I've also been thinking about living arrangements. Her fingers twisted nervously. The apartment lease is month to month. I've been wondering if I should look for something more permanent. The question beneath her statement hung unspoken between them. Whether more permanent might eventually mean something shared, something that acknowledged their growing reconnection. Michael wasn't ready to voice that possibility aloud, but he felt its presence, a future shimmering on the horizon. Take your time deciding. There's no rush. He squeezed her hand gently. Whatever you choose, you'll always be close to the kids. Hannah's answering smile contained multitudes. Gratitude, understanding, patience. Unlike 9 years ago, they now had the luxury of time, of choices made without external pressure. The possibility of them finding their way back to each other would unfold at its own pace, guided by mutual respect rather than desperate circumstances. Their moment of connection fractured as Ethan came racing back, urgency in his expression. Dad, Sophia's stuck at the top of the climbing thing and she's scared to come down. The ordinary family crisis, minor, solvable, immediate, grounded Michael in the present reality of their lives. He jogged toward the playground, Hannah beside him, united in purpose if still undefined in relationship. As May progressed, an unexpected complication arose from a surprising source. Eleanor Parker, after weeks of silence following Michael's confrontation, reached out through her attorney with a formal letter. The document contained three elements: a legal acknowledgement of her interference in Michael's relationship with Hannah, a transfer of substantial funds to a trust for the twins' education, and a request, not a demand, to meet her grandchildren. Michael read the letter 5 times, searching for hidden manipulation, for the controlling tactics that had defined his relationship with Eleanor for decades. The straightforward language and absence of emotional leverage seemed unlike the mother he'd known. Either Eleanor had experienced a profound change of heart, or she'd become more sophisticated in her approach. He shared the letter with Hannah that evening, watching her expression shift from wariness to thoughtful consideration. "Do you believe she's sincere?" Hannah set the letter aside, her fingers trailing along its edge. "I don't know." Michael's honesty felt important. She's never faced consequences for her actions before. This might be the first time she's truly had to confront the harm she's caused. What would seeing Eleanor mean for the girls, for Ethan? Hannah posed the question without judgment, offering the perspective of a co-parent rather than someone Eleanor had deeply wronged. Michael considered the implications carefully. Ethan loves his grandmother, despite her flaws. He'd be confused by her permanent absence. And the twins deserve to know their family, all of it, as long as that knowledge doesn't harm them. The decision wasn't theirs alone, Dr. Evans provided professional guidance, recommending any initial meeting be brief, highly structured, and conducted in a neutral location with both Michael and Hannah present. Ms. Chen noted that family connections, when healthy, typically benefited children's development. But the final choice belonged to Sophia and Olivia themselves. The conversation with the twins proved more straightforward than Michael had anticipated. He explained, in age-appropriate terms, who Eleanor was, what she had done, and why she had been absent from their lives. He emphasized that the choice to meet her belonged entirely to them, with no pressure or expectations. Sophia processed the information with her characteristic intensity. "So she's the reason we didn't know you were our dad, the one who made Mom go away?" Michael nodded, watching her work through the implications, her young mind grappling with adult complexities. "But now she wants to say sorry?" Sophia's skepticism mirrored Michael's own initial reaction. "She says she does." Michael kept his tone neutral. People can change, especially when they realize they've hurt others. But they have to prove that change through actions, not just words. Olivia, who had been quiet throughout the explanation, suddenly spoke. "I want to meet her." Her decisiveness surprised everyone. "If she's sorry, we should let her say it. Mom always says forgiveness is for us, not for them." Michael glanced at Hannah, who sat beside him during the conversation, a united front despite Eleanor's attempts to separate them. Hannah's expression reflected pride in her daughter's wisdom, tinged with her own complex feelings about the woman who had altered the course of their lives. The meeting was arranged for the following Sunday at a small park near Michael's building. Eleanor arrived precisely on time, wearing a simple dress rather than her usual business attire. She brought no gifts, having been explicitly instructed not to attempt to buy affection or forgiveness. Her hands trembled slightly as she approached the bench where Michael and Hannah waited with the children. Ethan recognized his grandmother immediately, running to greet her with unguarded enthusiasm. The twins hung back, Sophia slightly in front of her sister in her perpetual protective stance, observing Eleanor with cautious curiosity. Eleanor knelt to embrace Ethan, then straightened to face the girls. Her composure, maintained through decades of corporate negotiations and social maneuvering, faltered visibly. Michael had never seen his mother cry in public, had rarely seen her cry at all. The tears that filled her eyes now seemed to surprise her as much as everyone else. "You look so much like your father when he was young." Eleanor addressed the twins directly, her voice unsteady but clear. "I've missed so much of your lives. That was my choice, and it was a terrible one. I can't change the past, but I want you to know that I'm sorry, truly sorry, for keeping you from your father and for keeping him from you." The simple apology, devoid of justifications or excuses, revealed an Eleanor Parker Michael had never known. Humbled, uncertain, stripped of the armor of position and authority. His complicated feelings toward his mother shifted slightly, making space for something new, the possibility of redemption, not for Eleanor's sake, but for the family she had fractured. The interaction lasted less than 30 minutes. When it was time to leave, Sophia surprised everyone by approaching Eleanor directly. "You hurt our mom, and our dad, and us." Her clear-eyed assessment cut through social niceties. "If you want to be our grandmother, you have to never do that again. To anyone." Eleanor nodded, accepting the child's judgment with unexpected grace. "I promise to try my very best, every single day." The exchange marked the beginning of a cautious reconciliation, not erasing consequences but creating space for new patterns, for relationships defined by boundaries and respect rather than control and deception. Summer arrived with opportunities for healing and integration. Hannah's position at Westlake Memorial began, part-time hours allowing her to rebuild professional confidence while maintaining energy for her children. Michael adjusted his work schedule, delegating more responsibility to his management team to prioritize family time. The twins enrolled in day camp alongside Ethan, forming friendships outside the shadow of their difficult past. Weekend excursions became family traditions, hiking in nearby parks, visiting the zoo, exploring the science museum. These outings sometimes included Eleanor for brief periods, her relationship with her grandchildren developing in small, measured increments under Michael and Hannah's watchful eyes. Vincent's case resolved in early August with a plea agreement that guaranteed a minimum 15-year sentence in federal prison. The news brought closure rather than celebration, an ending that allowed the family to move forward without constantly looking back. The twins processed the information with Dr. Evans, drawing pictures of what safety felt like, creating a literal box where they placed written memories of Vincent they wished to leave behind. As summer waned, Hannah approached Michael with a significant decision. Standing in his kitchen, while the children played in the living room, she handed him a thick envelope. "I'm giving notice on the apartment." Her eyes held both certainty and vulnerability. "It doesn't make sense to maintain two households when we're already functioning as one family. The children are constantly moving between spaces. We're having most meals together. We're making decisions together." She paused, gathering courage. "Unless you think it's too soon." Michael absorbed her words, their implications cascading through him. They had been circling this possibility for months, neither wanting to rush the complex reconfiguration of their relationship, both aware of the children watching and learning from their choices. "It's not too soon." Michael's voice emerged steadier than he felt. "It's exactly the right time." He reached for her hand, the simple contact grounding them both. "We lost 9 years, Hannah. I don't want to waste another day pretending we're just co-parents when we both know we're becoming something more." The kiss that followed felt like both homecoming and new beginning, acknowledgement of their shared past and commitment to their unwritten future. Behind them, a small gasp revealed Olivia standing in the doorway, eyes wide with delight. "Are you getting married?" The question emerged with breathless hope. Michael and Hannah exchanged glances, communication flowing between them with renewed ease. "Not yet," Hannah answered honestly. "First, we're going to live together and make sure we all fit together as a family, all 5 of us. Then we'll see what comes next." Olivia's excitement proved impossible to contain. Within minutes, all 3 children knew about the impending household merger. Ethan responded with practical questions about bedroom arrangements. Sophia watched the adults carefully, looking for signs of uncertainty or hesitation. Finding none, she offered her approval with characteristic directness. "It makes sense. We belong together." The simplicity of her assessment resonated through the weeks that followed. Hannah moved into Michael's penthouse in stages, bringing only what mattered most, creating space for herself within the home Michael had built. The children helped arrange her books on shelves, hang her artwork on walls, blend her life with theirs in tangible ways. By October, their integration felt complete in ways Michael had never imagined possible. Hannah's nurse's schedule complemented his business hours, allowing one parent to always be available for school pickup and activities. Evening routines developed natural rhythms: homework supervision, dinner preparation, bedtime stories. The twins' lingering anxieties continued to fade under the security of consistent love from both parents. Ethan thrived with siblings, his natural empathy deepening as he learned to share not just toys but parental attention. Halloween marked their first major holiday as a united family. Hannah sewed costumes, a triceratops for Ethan, twin butterflies for the girls at their request. Michael carved pumpkins with each child's design, arranged them on the penthouse balcony with glowing lights. They trick-or-treated through the building's hallways, Eleanor joining them briefly to admire costumes and distribute caramel apples. As autumn deepened toward winter, the approach of Christmas brought both anticipation and reflection. The anniversary of finding the twins behind that dumpster loomed large in Michael's consciousness, a reminder of how close they had come to tragedy, how completely their lives had transformed in 12 months. The family's December unfolded with new traditions woven alongside old ones. Michael and Hannah took the children to select a tree together, its branches now heavy with a mixture of Michael's heirloom ornaments and handmade decorations the children created at school. Evenings were spent baking cookies from Hannah's grandmother's recipes, the kitchen filled with laughter and flour-dusted countertops. Ethan appointed himself official taste tester, while Sophia revealed an unexpected talent for precise decorating. Olivia, whose nightmares had finally ceased, composed a Christmas song on the small keyboard Michael had bought her for her 9th birthday in March, a belated celebration of the birthday he'd missed for 8 years. The Saturday before Christmas Eve, they gathered to wrap presents for a local children's charity. Michael's annual tradition expanded to include Hannah's suggestion that they also prepare care packages for the parents. It had been her experience, she explained quietly to Michael as they worked side by side, that people often remembered the children in shelters, but forgot the adults who carried the heavier burdens of worry and responsibility. The twins listened as Hannah explained this, their expressions solemn with understanding beyond their years. That little moment of insight, Hannah's compassion born from her own struggles, the twins' quiet recognition, Ethan's immediate suggestion that they include handwritten notes so the grown-ups know someone sees them, crystallized something Michael had been feeling for months. This family, formed through pain and chance and choice, possessed a depth of empathy that could only have been forged through their separate journeys of loss and resilience. What they'd built together wasn't merely a patched version of what might have been, it was something new and stronger, tempered by fire. Christmas Eve arrived with perfect storybook snow, transforming Westlake into a landscape of white frosted trees and glittering streets. The family had decided on a new tradition to mark the anniversary of finding the twins, a nighttime walk to see neighborhood lights before returning home for hot chocolate and Christmas stories. Eleanor would join them later for dinner, her relationship with them still evolving, but strengthening with each careful step forward. Bundled against the cold, they made their way through snow-covered streets, admiring decorations, catching snowflakes on gloved hands. Michael and Hannah walked behind the children, fingers intertwined, watching as Ethan pointed out inflatable snowmen to his sisters, Olivia spinning in circles trying to catch snowflakes on her tongue, Sophia keeping a watchful eye on both while pretending not to enjoy herself quite as much as she clearly was. When they turned the corner onto Commercial Street, Michael felt Hannah's hand tighten in his. Neither had explicitly planned this route, but some unspoken agreement had drawn them here, to Westlake Market, the place where everything had begun. The dumpsters where Michael had found the twins had been replaced during the summer with a recycling center. The physical landscape altered just as their lives had been. He wondered if the girls recognized the location, if it triggered memories they'd rather forget. Sophia stopped walking suddenly, her attention fixed on the storefront. Olivia and Ethan, caught up in a snowball-forming contest, continued ahead without noticing. Michael and Hannah paused, giving Sophia the space to process whatever she was feeling. Her expression revealed nothing, but her posture spoke volumes. Straight back, chin lifted, no longer the frightened child huddled against the cold. "We used to be so scared." Her voice carried clearly in the winter air. "All the time, every day. I thought that was just how life was supposed to be." Michael released Hannah's hand and knelt beside Sophia, snow seeping through his jeans, the discomfort insignificant against the importance of this moment. And now Sophia turned to face him, her eyes, his eyes, clear and direct. "Now I know what it feels like to be safe, to belong somewhere, with people who love me no matter what." Her gloved hand reached for his. That's what you gave us, Dad. Not just a home or food or presents. You showed us what family is supposed to be. The title, Dad, still new from Sophia's lips, struck Michael with physical force. He gathered her close, this serious child who carried wisdom beyond her years. This daughter who had fought so hard to protect her sister when no one protected her. You showed me too, his voice roughened with emotion. You and Olivia and Mom and Ethan, you showed me what I was missing, even when I didn't know to look for it. Hannah joined them, calling Olivia and Ethan back. The five of them stood together in the gently falling snow, forming a circle with joined hands. Five people who had been strangers a year ago, now bound by choice as much as by blood or circumstance. A family created from fragments, stronger for having been broken and carefully, lovingly reassembled. Looking at the faces illuminated by the soft glow of Christmas lights, Sophia's thoughtful expression, Olivia's gentle smile, Ethan's unguarded joy, Hannah's quiet strength, Michael felt the year's journey settle into its proper perspective. They had survived the unthinkable. They had found each other across impossible odds. They had built something new from the ruins of what had been lost. This spot, once the scene of abandonment and desperation, had been transformed into a place of reunion and redemption. The symmetry wasn't lost on Michael. How a single decision to pull over on a snowy Christmas Eve had altered not just the trajectory of two abandoned children, but his own path as well. The universe, it seemed, occasionally offered second chances disguised as random moments, coincidences that, in retrospect, appeared anything but accidental. Sometimes I still can't believe we're all together. Hannah's voice was soft as they began walking home, the children running ahead to catch the first twinkling lights of their building in the distance. After so many years of looking over my shoulder, it feels almost like a dream. Not a dream. Michael drew her closer, his arm around her shoulders, just the way things were always meant to be. Behind them, the spot where it all began receded into the swirling snow, no longer a site of trauma, but simply another landmark in their shared history. Ahead, their home glowed with warmth and light, a beacon against the winter night. Within its walls, they would continue writing their story, not the fairy tale version where nothing bad ever happened, but the more valuable true version, where difficult things had happened and been overcome, where love had proven itself more durable than the forces that sought to destroy it. Whatever challenges tomorrow might bring, and life would certainly bring more, they would face them together, with the hard-won knowledge that love was not a single choice, but 1,000 daily decisions to remain, to try again, to believe in possibilities rather than limitations. To recognize that family wasn't defined by perfect circumstances, but by imperfect people choosing each other, again and again, through darkness and light. As they reached their building, Sophia turned back, her gaze finding Michael's across the distance. She smiled, a rare, unguarded expression that transformed her serious face. Then she took Olivia's hand on one side and Ethan's on the other, the three children forming their own unbreakable unit as they waited for their parents to catch up. Michael and Hannah paused for a moment, watching them. Look at what we made. Hannah's voice was filled with wonder, not just at the children, but at the family they had forged, at the life they were building from the wreckage of what had been lost. Michael squeezed her hand, the simple gesture containing all the words that didn't need to be spoken. Together, they walked forward to join their children, stepping out of the shadow of the past and into the light of the future they were creating. Day by day, choice by choice, love by love. The universe had given them exactly what they needed, exactly when they needed it, even when it had arrived in the most unexpected packages.